One Panasonics, two Panasonics. No, folks, you are not seeing double. What you are looking at right now are my two Panasonic RX-DS boomboxes. This one here is my original RX-DS50, which I bought new in 1990-ish for about 350 bucks. And this one over here is the top of the line model, the RX-DS50, which I never even knew existed for several years. This one was only available in Japan as far as I know. Maybe a couple of European countries as well, but certainly never in Canada. Now, why do I have these two things sitting here? Well, today's going to be a project video featuring the DS50. But more than that, back when I bought this DS20, well, actually the first thing I should probably tell you guys is I'm the kind of person who, if he knows there's something really awesome out there, he wants it. Something with a whole bunch of features and stuff. And what I didn't know at the time of buying this DS20 was it was far from the top of the line. It was actually the bottom line unit. And what I found out over the years was one time I needed to get in here to resolder that headphone jack. And what I found when I got in there was that there was a bunch of open spaces in the circuit boards for extra components. The volume control had a little spot for a motor, and there was all kinds of additional circuitry being hinted at. And that's when I discovered that in the US and Canada we actually got a RX-DS50. And the DS50 adds a bunch of features to this. It adds automatic tape sensing. I believe it has an XBS control for extra bass. And it's got a motorized volume control, but more importantly, it has a remote control. And that's one of the things that always just drove me insane about the DS20, was no remote. And I could not stand that. And it's been sitting in the back of my mind for years and years and years. And then I come to find out that there's a DS40 and a DS50 as well. And I still don't know very much about the DS40, but from what I've been able to tell, it's sort of just basically a DS20 with different numbers on it. And sometimes they have remotes, sometimes they don't. And in other markets, even the DS20 sometimes had a remote, which really drove me crazy. But then the DS50 adds even more stuff. We'll just move over here to that one. So as you can see, we have a TV tuner in this one that we don't have in the DS20, and I don't think even the DS30 has that. And we've got Dolby noise reduction. We've got the same automatic tape selection that the DS30 has. We've got remote control, which didn't come with this unit. We've got the XBS. And we've got all the same features that are present in the DS20 alongside that. So, I've mentioned before the website joust.com. And that's what I went with in order to get this into my hands. Now, how much did it cost to import this from Japan, you might be asking? Well, you remember I said I paid $350 for this one, brand new back in the day? Well, I paid $300 to get this one in 2021, used. I won the auction for about 50 bucks, and the rest has been shipping and Joust fees. Because Joust is a brokerage. They help intermediate buyers from this part of the country and buyers in Japan. It's the only way to take advantage of Yahoo auctions in Japan. So yeah, I bought this thing earlier this year, and yeah, I thought it was going to be cheap, but it wasn't. And the reason it wasn't cheap is because DHL had to ship it here. It had to come from Japan via DHL, so that was about $160 right there, just that one leg of the journey. Otherwise, it was quite reasonable. So if you're going to use JAWS, I would heartily suggest that you A, make sure it's something you cannot get in North America, like this DS50, and you better be sure that you're willing to pay the price, because you are going to be paying money. I'm telling you right now. So what we're going to do in today's video is we're going to test this out. We're going to see how well it works and what needs to be done on it, and then maybe I'll fix it up for my next project video. Sound good? Okay. First of all, power. How am I going to run this thing? Well, there's a pretty good chance already that it will work on our electrical system because it's so close to what Japan uses. We're at 125 volts, 60 hertz, and Japan runs 100 volts at either 50 or 60 hertz, so this has to be compatible with both frequencies and 100 volts. However, I don't know that for sure. I don't know if it'll work for sure. Now, if this had cost me anything less than $300, I would just take the chance and plug it in and see if it works, but I paid $300 for this thing. So, what we're going to do is this. Yes, folks, that's what it takes to run one of these big boom boxes from the 90s. A lot of D-cells. And I'm not spending a whole bunch of money for the good alkaline stuff either. So we're going to use batteries, and these things actually take 14 batteries. There's the 10 D cells for the main power, and then you've got 4 AA cells for the memory. And I'm going to skip the memory batteries because they're not necessary. I know this through much years of living with the DS20. This DS50 will work just fine off the main power alone. Now, eventually what I hope to do is once I get inside these two things, I'll compare the power supplies, and if I'm absolutely sure that this guy will work in North America on our power, then I'll try it. But it's just not guaranteed. Now, I have the service manuals for the European DS20 and DS30 that run off 220 and 240 volts. And the difference between those models is apparently they just swap out the transformers. The power supplies are otherwise almost identical. They just use 4 diodes and 4 capacitors, and it's actually really simple. It just takes your line voltage and steps it down to 15 volts for the rest of the unit to use. So, odds are pretty good that I could just take the power supply out of my DS20, throw it in here, and have it work. But I'm not going to do that because I want to restore my DS20 to at least closer to a brand new shape than it already is. And as you can see, it's definitely got some condition issues now. The Panasonic badge is missing. These mode switches are missing, rather the decorative pieces for them. And the speaker grills are in kind of bad shape. And somebody's taped something to the CD door during the time in which I didn't have it. Because yeah, I got rid of it at one point and then regretted it and found it one day sitting outside waiting to be recycled, and I thought, nope, I'm taking it back. So it's back. Anyway, let's take a closer look at this one, the DS50. Now already I can see issues with the speakers in there. Can you see that? The foam is in bad shape. And I'm not sure why, but every single DS50 on Joust has that issue. This despite the fact that the DS20 has no issues. So we might be dealing with two different speakers here. I don't know why they would do that because they look identical, but I guess they must have done something different with the DS50. Anyhow, the Joust listing mentioned that the cassette didn't work and everything else did. So let's take a quick look in there. See if we can see what's going on. Yeah, I see an issue. The pinch roller for one direction is partially engaged. Now what could cause that? Well, you remember my Sansui videos. Most likely there's a broken belt in there. That's what I'm going to assume is the problem. But we don't know that for sure, so. But yeah, I'm really not sure about trying to play any tapes in this. Regardless, I do have some music here. We're going to try the deck with. Here's my made-up tape I did for the Sansui. And for the CD, I've picked something incredibly obscure and out of print. This is the only way I can test an old CD player like this because they are not designed from factory to play CDRs. Some will, but some won't. And I know from previous experience over there, the DS20 would not play CDRs until it was calibrated to do so. So I'm probably going to do that on this machine too, if I can get it working. So yeah. How about we get some batteries in this thing and try and fire it up and see what works and see what doesn't work. Oh, also, I've got this little doohickey here for testing the tuner. The DS50 doesn't run on North American FM bands, so it might be a little tricky getting that to work, but it should work well enough. And I've got one of my little former power supply review samples there powering the little guy. So I'm just going to shut you down right now. I'll get batteries in this thing, and we're going to see what's up. Okay, we are back, and we've got the batteries in. And as you can see, we've got a clock flashing there. It's one of the things other that you don't get with the DS20. And I'm not even sure if the DS30 has that clock feature. But this one does. So we've got power to it. Let's see what happens here. Okay, the tape clicked. I don't know if it did anything in there. No, it didn't. Whoops. Sorry to bump you like that. Just trying to reach around. Yeah, that pinch roller is still engaged down there, so I don't think I can even put a tape in there. So we are going to have to get in there and look at that for sure. Let's go over to the CD, and we'll try our extremely out of print CD. And I hope I don't get any copyright issues because of it. It's read the CD just fine. Let's pick a random track here. It's playing. I'm going to say the sled didn't sound like it was entirely healthy. Probably needs relubing.
I'd be a domineering.
It's not going to sound great until we get the speaker issues dealt with. But yeah, the CD player is doing great here. Not a problem whatsoever. So, let's give the tuner a go. I'm still not exactly sure how I'm going to do this. I may diagnose the cassette in this video, or I might save it for the next video. We'll just see how long this goes. I don't think it's going to go much longer, this testing phase. Okay, let's get into the tuner. AM, of course, uses bands that we cannot get here. But this one does have a frequency on it. It's just tuning in weird steps compared to what we're used to. Let's see if I can get the...
These really weird notes?
Yeah, I mean, for all we know, the Parkers could be anywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah, the actual
Maybe someone
frequency is 1490 on this station, but it seems like this is working fine.
Do we? No. The most sensible explanation is Matthew staged all this himself. He knows my locker combination.
So,
Why would Matthew want you to think so?
FM 760.
But you're...
And I'm not exactly sure how far this will go up, but we'll see if it goes up as high as my FM modulator goes. It should be able to. And if not that, we'll try the TV bands. Oh yeah, I think this will work. I'll just turn this little guy on here. You can just see it there. I'll try and find a frequency. It's set for 87.9, so should be able to get that. Oh, yep. We've got it locked in. See that? That's all lit up. Let's see if I can get an audio signal to it. Oh yeah, it's working just fine. Yeah, I don't know if you heard that buzzing or not, but that's definitely the issues with the surround. And fortunately, I was paying attention because I noticed that the entire surround just blew apart right there when I tried to do that. But yeah, tuner works, CD works, tape does not work. There is no way the tape is gonna work. It's not even making an attempt. And I'm not even gonna try to put the beans to it. So, you know what? Let's just take it apart right now and we'll see what's going on. How about that? Back in a jiffy. Okay, here we go, taking the DS50 apart. Fortunately, I've been inside the DS20 so many times that it's become very easy for me to do this. Very familiar. Well, it looks like my screwdriver needs to be remagnetized, but it's okay. Now, I've got a funny story for you while we're doing this, if I can find my screw here. I got turned on to Panasonic by somebody I went to school with in grade school by the name of Brad. Brad was a really awesome dude, one of the most popular kids in school, and one day we were doing this sort of parent-teacher-student night at the school, and Brad bought his boombox with him. And I believe he had a Panasonic RX-C50 or something like that. All I know is I was jealous of him. But that's not the funny part. The funny part is the school had a class frog as a pet. And Brad and some of the other kids, and I apologize to Brad if he's watching this right now for what I'm about to say, but they thought it would be a great idea to put this class frog inside the cassette deck of said Panasonic boombox. Next thing you know, Mr. Frog has escaped the cassette section and is now deep inside the guts of the boombox. So what they ended up having to do is take the boombox apart at the school and rescue the frog. Don't worry, the frog was fine, and the boombox was fine. But it was just kind of a funny little story, I thought. Anyhow, I was jealous, but not really all that concerned with Panasonic at the time, so my first boombox was a Pulsar CC4000 from Canadian Tire. Pulsar was their house brand. And that turned out to be a really good boombox, but I always kind of had Panasonic in the back of my mind, so when it finally became time for me to buy something that had a CD player, I went Panasonic. And I've never regretted that, because Panasonic in particular and Matsushita Electric in general have always had really good build quality to their products. You had National, the brand name in Japan, which is now no longer being used. You had Panasonic here, which is now the name of the entire company because it's so familiar to people. And then you had Technics, which was their more upscale, high-end brand. And you could get numerous products made by each one of these brands. I believe you could get boomboxes in all three of those brands, but when it comes to National, or as it would later be called, National Panasonic, that's what you look for when you're looking in Japan. Especially for early 80s boomboxes. And where is my screw? It takes a really, really long screwdriver to do this, guys, on these Panasonic units sometimes. Ah, there we go. Anyhow, National as a brand name kind of phased out by the early 90s, so in Japan, you mostly had just Panasonic after that time. And it makes sense that they would adopt Panasonic for their entire company name at this point, since Panasonic is the most well-known of them all. And the reason they had separate brand names in the first place was because the National brand name in North America wouldn't mean much. They figured, I guess, people would say National, but it's from Japan. How can it be National? It's not from this nation. So I guess they adopted Panasonic as a brand name then, and it just kind of stuck, and here we are today. And as far as I know, they're planning to bring back Technics, but I don't know how successful they will be with that. This Technics has been kind of off the market for quite some time now. Let's see, have we got all the screws out? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yep, that should be all of them. Now let's turn this around. Ha, the clock is still flashing. Don't have those batteries in, but it's still flashing, so there must be some power in there yet. Now we've got to pop these little things out. And I'm now realizing I didn't get a screwdriver to do that with, so let me just reach back here and grab a nail clipper. That should do it. Now these are real easy to lose. Don't know if you can see it, so I am hoping I don't lose these. These are all missing on my DS20, and I'm gonna have to find a way to get more. Actually, the going plan right now is to get another DS20 for parts. So what I might do is just take whatever I get for parts, swap the speakers over for this one, maybe swap the power supply over for this one, and then everything else my DS20 can have. Sounds like it might be a good idea. Okay. Off comes the face. Maybe. Unplug back here. And uh-oh, I've got a problem. I'll show you what I mean here. This power supply is different from the DS20, but not real different. My DS20 does not have this connector. At least I don't think it does. So I'm going to have to figure out what's going on with that. Anyway, we'll get to the cassette deck here in a second, I guess. I just wanted to take a look at how bad these speakers are. Let me get a sheet or something to protect the faceplate. I know it's a little banged up, but I don't want it to get any worse. So let's take a look at these speakers here. Let me switch you around. Let's do this one. Now the part number on these is EAS 12P428B, 2.7 ohms. And I believe that's the same ohm rating as my DS20, but I don't know if the speaker part number is the same. So let's just get in here, pull the screws out, and we'll just see how bad these speakers are. After their years and years and years of speaking. Now I could refoam these, and I probably will at some point, but I'm not sure yet on whether or not I want to keep these with the Boombox or just get a good pair out of a parts DS20 or something like that. Anyhow, that should be loose. Oh boy, look at that. Yeah, the surround is toast on these. I mean, it's completely come away. It's just totally disintegrating. Just poke it and it just falls right apart. So yeah, this one's got no surround left. Beautiful. So yeah, that's definitely going to need to be addressed if I want to keep using this, and I do. But for now, we're going to put this back, and we're going to get started on the cassette deck. But yeah, Brad in Swift Current, he's the guy who brought me into this whole Panasonic thing. And I was so proud of having the DS20 all the way into high school. that I brought it to school one day at McClurg High School, and this kid, who was a couple of grades younger than me, who obviously had rich parents, he saw me holding it one day, and he stops in the hall, and he says, "Panasonic, huh? One of those cheap brands." And that made me angry, because I'd paid $350, which I earned myself for the DS20. But it's all good. This kid, he was into Sony at the time. Now, I'm not going to bash Sony, because Sony does have some excellent products, and always has, but their quality has been a little bit inconsistent compared to Matsushita, in my opinion. So I just kind of find it funny that he would call my Panasonic cheap, when most likely his Sony stuff has had to be repaired more than once. That's not to say I haven't had to repair the DS20, because I have. It's just all been minor stuff like soldering joints. The DS20 is still working just fine. Well, except the cassette deck is gummed up on that one, but anyway, I apologize to all you Sony aficionados out there, but that's just been my general take as an electronics technician. Sony stuff is either really good or really not so good, depending on the era it's made in. So, let me see if I can remember how to do this. There's a little bit extra going on with this one that mine DS20 doesn't have. First things first, we got to get all these buttons and stuff out of the way. Watch screws go flying everywhere. I would not be shocked if this has never been apart before. Now, what else we got going on here? Man, my lighting situation is terrible. I gotta get better lights, but not right now. I've got a motor to unplug here, it looks like, for the volume control, so I'll do that. And I've got a little light to unplug as well. That's all stuff my DS20 doesn't have to worry about. And we just fold her over like so. Actually, let me look at the solder joints. Everything looks pretty good in there. Looks like we may need to re-lube the volume control here. Perhaps. Perhaps not. I've got no way to test if this remote motor works because I don't have the remote for this one, but there may be a future Joust purchase in which I obtain the remote for this one. Now we gotta take this assembly out of the way so that we can get at the cassette deck. And there we go. So now we can access the cassette deck. Turn it this way just so we can see a little better maybe. See if I can point you down. We'll take out the screws for the tape deck. And we'll see real quick what's going on with it. Place your bets now. Is it a belt or something worse? And you can clearly see that this pinch roller is partially engaged. The flippy heady thing is in decent shape, it feels like, which is good because that's a problem on my DS20. I'll have to get in there soon and re-lube it. Let's take these wires and make them loose so we can get the cassette deck out of there. See if I can get this connector unplugged. It was glued down, but that glue is so old and dry now that it doesn't matter. So out she comes. Now, how am I going to do this? Well, first I'm going to unplug the connector for the motor. And I'm going to leave this ribbon in place. The belt actually looks good. So this may be a little more tricky than you would think. Is it just jammed or what's going on here? We've actually got two belts, but they're both good. I wonder if this motor's any good. So, as you might be able to tell, I've got power back to it. What I'm just going to do, we won't hook up the speakers or anything. But what I just want to do in this video is try to figure out what's going on with this tape deck. So I need to try and see what it does with a real tape in it. And as you can see, just from playing around with the mechanism in the previous video, it appears that this mechanism has reset itself now. So let's go ahead and put a tape in and then we'll see what happens. Alright, is it going to play? Yes! But I don't know if you hear that clicking noise. That's not what I would consider normal. Does it reverse? Yes, it does. No clicking. Oh, look at how slow it fast forwards. And now it's jammed up again. With the tape in it. Great! Fortunately, yours truly has left this all in pieces so he can get into here. So it looks like we've probably got a lubrication issue with this. At least that's what I would surmise. Let me gently fold this back out of the way. And we'll see if we can get this to reset itself yet again. But I'm encouraged. We've already gotten it playing a little bit. So, fortunately I made this tape using a blank tape that I don't care about whether or not it lives or not. Just cycle the mechanism a little bit. Don't know if I can get to the transport controls very well. It's still not resetting. But yeah, at least we know the motor works now. Okay, yeah. We got it to reset again. And I don't know if you saw that because it might have been out of frame. But the head block moved really slow back into position. So we've got a definite lubrication issue here. Fortunately, I am equipped for such things. And fortunately, I've got service manuals for the DS20 and DS30, which probably use the same mechanism. So if I screw up with the reassembly or something, I should be able to handle it. Let me just get my little fingers in here. Yeah, see how slow that moves? We've just got to get in there and relube it. That's the only answer to this situation. So, I guess that's our next video. Relubing this transport, which is going to be interesting because this ribbon cable that comes out the top of it, I've never been able to get that disconnected properly in my DS20. I don't know why. It should be a fairly simple connector, but I could just never make it work. But I will have to figure it out on this occasion because I can't do this with this thing in the deck like this. So that's our next video. I'll see you again next time.